The holiday train not only spreads holiday cheer, but every year CP rail workers raise thousands to help food pantries, and this year the need is even greater. And joining us at the roundtable this week is Bruce Garcia, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the Joint Council for Economic Opportunity, JCEO, which provides services to families and individuals in need in Clinton and Franklin counties. Bruce, welcome. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
The JCEO helps the working poor, the elderly, people who are severely ill. Your agency coordinates the federal Head Start program.
Yes.
for preschoolers. It operates food pantries in both Plattsburgh and Malone, helps with fuel assistance as we now get into the winter. How many individuals and families do you assist yearly in both Franklin and Clinton counties?
In total, between the two counties, we'll service well over 30,000 residents. Some of our biggest programs from the standpoint of the services provided are clearly our food shelves. We'll service anywhere from 10 to 12,000 people a year through our food shelves. We have two food pantries that we're responsible for in Franklin County. One's in Malone, the other one's in Duane. And here in Clinton County, we actually run 11 pantries. And we have 10 outreach sites in the county, and we have a pantry at every one of our outreach sites.
Demand growing every year?
Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but yes, it is. And this year we're seeing more people than we've seen ever. And unfortunately, we're also seeing an increasing number of seniors.
We hear the economy is improving, yet in so many ways you hear that when it comes to many working families and individuals that they haven't seen the improvement and that they're still feeling the effects of the Great Recession 5-6 years later.
Well, that's true, and I think one of the primary issues is the fact that when you look at what's happened with wages, wages haven't necessarily kept pace with inflation, and I think one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of seniors aging into retirement and aging into poverty at the same time, and for a lot of our working families, their wages just simply haven't kept pace.
Do you have to increase your budget every year to buy food, or how are you stocking your food pantries, or is that always the ongoing thing to find different sources and different ways to keep your shelves stocked?
Well, one of the really strange things about our business is that one of the biggest things that we do is food, and it's the only thing that we do that doesn't have a direct funding source. We do fund it. Quite frankly, Clinton County has always been great. They give us funds every year that we use for the food shelf. We get a grant from the Regional Food Bank. Our primary source is donations. All the retailers in the city of Plattsburgh have been absolutely phenomenal at donating food to us. Last year, to give you an example, just here in Clinton County, there was more than 100,000 pounds of food donated from vendors here in the county. And
is it enough, or are you finding yourself constantly running low on food at the food pantries?
Most of the time we're okay. We do have times, especially when it's really busy. Clearly, during the winter time, when people have other expenses that they have to face, when the cost of heating goes up and all that. Clearly, we have more demand for our services, and resources can get stretched. I will say that for example, this year, between Clinton and Franklin County, we distributed more than 1,100 Thanksgiving baskets. And we clearly would not have been able to do that without really generous folks in the community that donated turkeys and the fixings for Thanksgiving dinners. And the response this year was probably the best I've ever seen it. So it was phenomenal. 1,100
between the two counties.
Yes.
That sounds like a lot, like a huge demand. Does that leave your shelves empty? So when the holiday train, the CP Rail holiday train came a couple of weeks ago, and hundreds, if not thousands of people turned out along the route to donate food, that and the checks you receive from the employees of the railroad, did that come at a critical time to help replenish those shelves?
Yeah, the people who haven't seen the Canadian Pacific Railway holiday train really should see it. And it is one of those events that we wait for every year. People who come to the holiday train this year we collected 2,472 pounds of food. Over 1,000 pounds more than we did last year. We had a couple $100 in donations from people that evening. And then, of course, the check from Canadian Pacific Railway for $4,500, which was phenomenal and will just be a huge help at this time of year.
And we can't see it in this video because we're standing behind you, but the check was for $4,500. And that this time of year is a major donation. That goes a long ways, and you really count on that money.
We do. And you know, one of the great things about Canadian Pacific Railway is every year that check seems to be going up. So, I mean, they do a phenomenal job. The employees are great. One of the things that I'm always happiest about is the fact that they always love their stop in Plattsburgh. And they always comment on the number of people they have and the crowd that they have. And so they love coming to Plattsburgh, and we love having them.
And the crowd is always huge in Plattsburgh. And as you mentioned, this year they filled 3 trucks with donated food.
Yeah.
That will last you for how long? Will that get you through the winter, or does that just get you through the holidays between the check and the food donations?
That'll get us through the holidays.
Through the holidays.
Yep.
And then, as you mentioned, during the winter months, you probably will see the demand from folks who are paying for heating oil and everything else, are probably struggling a little bit to get by, and may come to you looking for help.
Yeah, this is clearly our biggest time of the year.
And you constantly are adding new programs and services where you see a demand, and you mentioned that you're seeing more and more elderly people, and I imagine a number of them probably need help in many cases getting to and from medical appointments. And is that something that you've started up now, having volunteers drive them?
Well, we've actually been working on that for a while here in Clinton County. And we used to do it under a contract with the Clinton County Department of Social Services. The really nice part about that program is there's a lot of seniors who need transportation to and from medical appointments, but don't have transportation. The use of volunteers actually allows them to stay in their home, maintain their independence, and it really cuts down on the cost of nursing home care. What we're doing now is we're now working with the State Department of Health to also begin doing the arranging of rides in Franklin County.
So you've been doing it in Clinton County for some time now,
right.
And you're hoping to expand that into Franklin
right.
County. And as you mentioned, that makes a world of difference, especially for the elderly.
It really does. I don't think a lot of people understand that for a lot of the seniors, if they're not able to get to and from medical appointments, they can't stay in their own homes. And in a rural setting like ours, getting from Ellenburg to Plattsburgh for a medical appointment is not the easiest thing in the world. They're totally capable of living on their own, but they need to have that medical care. And it saves them the angst of having to move out of their home, and it saves a lot of money from avoiding nursing home care.
Do you have enough volunteers, or are you always constantly looking for volunteer drivers?
We're always looking for volunteer drivers, and anybody who would want to volunteer would only have to contact our office to be able to do that.
And if people are watching and wondering the best way to help?
The best way that somebody can help is doing whatever they can. In some cases, it's a matter of volunteering. In some cases, it may be through donations. They may not be able to give us time, but they can give us, even a small donation.
And is monetary donation better than, say, food donations?
We have access to the regional food bank where we can purchase food items at a much reduced cost. So clearly the donations are better because they allow us to buy more. So, somebody can go out and buy what they can buy for $5, we can probably double with that same amount of money.
And on your website, you will explain how they can get in touch with you, what your needs are, and
Yes.
what they can do.
Yep.
Obviously, you're helping so many people as it is now, and within the past couple of years, you've taken on the extra county, Franklin County. I mean, for a number of years, it was Clinton County and serving the whole rural county, not just Plattsburgh, and now you take on Franklin County over the past couple of years. How much of a strain has that been? How tough has that been to suddenly be responsible for that county as well?
It hasn't been much of a strain, in all honesty. One of the things that I was fairly confident of when we started looking at Franklin County was that if we went up there and provided services, the services that they need and they want, that they would be very receptive. And quite frankly, we've established good working relationships with multiple partners. Mm-hmm. The county government has been phenomenal up there to work with. We've got partnerships with citizen advocates and, the Office for the Aging. Mm-hmm. We've got some great partners up there. So it's been a very good experience for us. And quite frankly, we've been able to, I think, to bring a level of services that they haven't seen in a while. So I think it's been good for both parties.
You expanded into Franklin County just within the past couple of years, sort of out of necessity. The Community Action Program there had some difficulties, and did you step in and fill a need and a void there?
Well, yeah, that's what happened. I mean, one of the very first things they did was they said to their weatherization program that they could shop themselves around and see if anybody wanted that. We entered into conversations with Homes and Community Renewal, and they asked us to take over that program. When we took over the weatherization, we also took over other energy services programs through NYSERDA. That was in September of 2012. In November of 2012, we did the same thing with their food services program. Mm-hmm. The food services program up there does a lot. That's where this greenhouse idea started. They already have greenhouses, they have gardens, we grow produce, is one aspect of that program. The other is through recovered food. Last year that program recovered more than 250,000 pounds of food. Hmm. Then that food and the food grown in the gardens and the greenhouses is then distributed to 44 food shelves in 4 counties, Clinton, Essex, Franklin, and St. Lawrence. Hmm. So it's a very large program. And then in February of 2013, we assumed responsibility for the Community Services Block Grant, which is really community outreach.
So you do have a greenhouse and garden program that's based in Malone that yes. supplies 4 counties with produce, but that's separate, and that'll continue to be separate.
That'll continue to be separate, yes.
This will be the big greenhouse and operation you hope to build at the landfill will be completely separate. And
it'll be separate, but it'll basically support that program.
And that is a big help. That helps families in several counties and needy families in the Malone area.
Yeah, well, one of the things about it is the fact that it's one of the ways of getting fresh fruit and vegetables to families, and as you know, the nutritional value in the fresh stuff is obviously much greater than the processed. So this is one of the ways that we do that. Now, we also have the capability at the food services warehouse. We have a certified kitchen where we can bring the produce in, blanch it, steam it, clean it, and flash freeze it so that we can distribute stuff throughout the year as well.
So you took over this food service program
right.
when you expanded into
right.
into Franklin County.
Yep.
And obviously it not only helps Franklin County, but 3 other counties as well.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, we just ran through the numbers. 27 of the pantries that we serve are actually in St. Lawrence County. Hmm. Yeah, so, a little over half of what we serve is actually in St. Lawrence.
Wow. So it really does have a far reach.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And, the pantries that we serve, and I'm not saying that we feed those people, because those pantries all have other resources. But throughout the pantries that we serve on a monthly basis, if you were to total up how many people they're serving over 20,000 people a month. Hmm. So, and we're obviously part of that, and we think pretty important part of what they can do.
You're supplemented by the Northeast Food Bank. Has that been consistent, or are they feeling financial pressures and such? And is their support and the supplies from them pretty consistent?
Regional Food Bank is pretty consistent. I mean, they've had to do some things over the years to kind of tighten up their operation. They had some things that, for example, the food co-op. For years, they did a food co-op that anybody could purchase. But as resources started to get tighter and they had to pay more attention to what they were actually providing to the pantries, they discontinued that so that they could provide more resources to the pantries.
For your pantry, the regional food bank out of Albany, what percentage of the food does that supply? Do they supply for the pantries here in Clinton and Franklin counties?
Probably 20%.
So you really do count on other sources, the stores, the donations, and
absolutely,
folks helping out.
Yeah, without you know, the regional food bank does a great job, and but it's still about 20% of what we utilize every year. So it's not like, you know, that's all we need. We clearly need a lot more than that.
And as you mentioned, people feeling the effects, wages not going up. You probably don't see this changing all that dramatically in the coming months.
Unfortunately, I mean, I'd like to say that what we've seen is a decrease in the usage of our food pantry, but that's not the case. We've actually seen an increase, and we've seen an increase pretty consistently over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I'm thinking that this is at least for now. I'm hoping that we've kind of topped out at, you know, the need, but you know, I'm not sure yet.
And when I saw you at the holiday train, you mentioned that you see faces you haven't seen before.
Yeah, that's it's a very unfortunate circumstance, but that's true. We're seeing people that we haven't seen before. We're seeing people access many of our services that have never accessed our services before. And I think it's important to understand that JCEO is not an extension of the Department of Social Services. If you were to look at the numbers of the people that we serve in any given year, you're going to see about, you know, 45 to 48% of the people that we serve are low-income working families whose sole source of income is wages. Mm-hmm. We're going to see about the same amount of people that are going to be senior citizens. Mm-hmm. And only about 3 or 4% of the people that we serve are in receipt of any form of cash public assistance. We're not an extension of the Department of Social Services. So when we see people that we've never seen before, we're seeing either seniors or low-income working families that are not making it, whose wages or their income, their retirement benefits and Social Security haven't kept pace with inflation. So we're seeing
check to check and probably having trouble covering the last check of the month.
Absolutely.
Or a check during the month.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, I think people often don't realize that about JCEO. They kind of see us as an extension of the social services, and we're not that at all. Our clientele is really quite different. And when we start seeing people that we haven't seen before, then we know that we're seeing people that are struggling more now than they have.
Bruce Garcia, thanks a lot for taking the time to stop by and see us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.